I'm going to show you how to repaint the bezel numbers on the Rolex Explorer 2 216570. You can see I already have the paint taken off of the numbers. I already have the little triangles painted. I'm going to show you first how to remove the paint from the numbers. I left one number still painted. The supplies that you're going to need are tester's paints, the enamels. The enamels will adhere to the metal better than the acrylics. I use black. I have a flat here, and then white. I use the white as a primer. Basically, just like you're painting a car. I think it seems to work better putting a primer coat or two down, and then the black on top of that. Because when you just apply the black straight to the metal, it's just like when you're painting a car. If you just apply the paint first without a primer, you see the metal showing through, and it's really hard to get good coverage. Also, a brush, very thin brush. This is an 18/0, so that would be size 18, I guess. Brush. Now, you don't have to be so perfect. You don't need to stain the lines when you paint. You don't want to stain the lines. You want to actually go over the edges of the numbers, and then I'll talk about that when I paint it, but you're going to let the paint dry after you paint the numbers, probably 5-10 minutes, and then scrape the excess off. The first thing you're going to want to do here is to scrape the numbers, the paint out of the numbers. Use a toothpick, and the paint comes out pretty easily. The reason you use a wood stick is so that it won't scratch the metal. That takes it out of there pretty easily. And I keep switching toothpicks while I'm doing it because the black paint sticks to the end of the toothpick. So I'll use a few toothpicks to do the whole bezel. Okay, then once the paint is out of the numbers, I'll take the watch and degrease it with a mild degreaser and soap and water, and I'll show you that here next. Okay, now to clean the bezel, degrease it. You want to use a nice, good degreasing soap. I use a very soft bristle brush with the soap on it. Clean all around the bezel, the numbers really well. Make sure you get anything, any grease or anything that's in those numbers out of there. Clean it really good, and then rinse it very well. Make sure there's no soap left on there at all. And then after that's done, dry it with a soft towel. This is hard to do with one hand. Make sure it's good and dry. And I'm actually going to let this sit for a little while to make sure that it's completely dry before I start painting. and your bezel is free of paint, free of dirt and grease, and you'll be ready to paint. Okay, now that my bezel is dry, there's no water on it at all, I'm going to start with my primer coat. I'm going to use the white here. When you put your paint on the brush, you just want a very, very tiny bit of paint. You don't want the paint to ball up on the brush or be a big glob. You just barely want any paint to be on the brush at all. And then what you'll do, let's see if I can get this closer. It's not easy doing this filming. Is basically cover that number. Try and keep your brush strokes nice and even. You just want a very, very thin layer with each coat that you put on the bezel. If there's any excess paint on the brush balling up, just wipe it off a little bit on a towel. Oops. Let's see if you can see that better. Sorry. If the paint gathers inside the numbers or is like a puddle, just take a towel and wipe it out of there and start all over again, because you don't want those big puddles at all. It's just really important to put the paint on as thin as possible. And let's see if we can. I've seen some people repaint these, and they actually see how the numbers are actually indented into the metal. Some people actually put so much paint in there that they fill up the inside of the numbers, and you can't even tell that it's engraved into the metal. So you want to keep those nice crisp lines and keep it indented. That's important. After I go around and paint all the numbers, the first numbers I painted should be dry, and then what I'll do is take the toothpick again and take the toothpick again and scrape off the excess paint around the outside just to clean up that extra paint, and it comes off easy. It's a little bit time consuming but it does come off easily. Okay, I've got my second coat of white applied. I'm going to let it sit for a little while, probably 10-15 minutes, and then come back with the toothpick and scrape the excess paint off, and then start with the black. You don't have to use the white. I just like to do it. I think it actually makes the black look a little bit richer, and it also takes less coats of the black to make it look opaque. Okay, now that I've got all the numbers painted, I'm going to scrape off the excess paint. I use a popsicle stick inside of a towel. You want to keep it pretty tight around the edges, and you're just going to scrape across evenly. Sometimes it will take the paint off inside of the number a little bit, but you can always go over and touch it up again. And if there's some that you just cannot get off, you can use your toothpick. Use a toothpick to get the extra off, which I'll do. And this goes pretty fast, really. Just takes a couple minutes to do all the numbers. You don't have to worry about scratching the bezel with this because it's a soft towel and a toothpick, or not a toothpick, a popsicle stick. So I'll go ahead and do this for all the numbers, and then we'll start with the black paint. Okay, now that I've got the numbers scraped, I'm gonna go in with my black. Same thing, you just want a tiny bit of paint on the brush and very lightly cover the numbers. And then I'll do this with all the numbers and then scrape that layer off. Now this is with 4 coats of paint. There are 2 coats of white, the flat white, and then a coat of the black flat enamel, and then a coat of the semi-gloss black enamel. And I'm going to let this dry a little bit and then scrape off the excess and see what it looks like. You can see, you can still see the indents of the numbers very well. And I'll see what it looks like once this paint is scraped off and see if I need to add any more. Sometimes you'll see some lumpiness. If you see any of that, I'll probably redo those numbers because you want the paint to be nice and even inside the indents. So we'll see what it looks like once I scrape that off. Okay, I've got 2 coats of the flat black on here. I'm just working on scraping off the excess. You're bound to scrape off some of the inside of the letter of the numbers here and there, and if you do that, you just go back in and touch it up a little bit. It can get quite frustrating because when you're scraping, the insides of the numbers will come out here and there, but just stick with it and keep touching them up and then letting them dry and then scraping. I have a little bit more touching up to do on some of the edges, and then once that's done, I'll let the watch, let the paint dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll clean it with soap and water again. And then it'll be done. But it does take 24 hours for the paint to completely cure. I'll scrape this off, the rest of the paint off, and then show you guys what it looks like. Okay, that's about it for repainting the bezel numbers. I've got some little paint here and there, but I'm going to let it dry overnight and then clean it all up. But that's the whole process. Hope this helps everybody, and if you have any questions you can message me and I'll try to help you out if I can. Thanks.